Texas, 12 million acres of forest, pine woods that stretch for hundreds of miles, thickets so dense you can't see 20 feet ahead. People think of Texas as desert, open plains, empty highways. But the eastern half is different. It's forest, deep, old, the kind of place where sound travels wrong and daylight disappears by 4 p.m. Every year, hikers go in, hunters set up camps, families take weekend trips. Most of them come back with stories about the heat, the mosquitoes, the silence. Some of them come back with different stories, and some of them don't come back at all. People don't go missing in the Texas forest. They stop coming back. Tonight, 5 people share what they experienced in those woods. They're not sure what happened, they just know they're not going back. I wasn't alone out there. I just never saw what was with me. This story comes from a woman named Michelle, 31 years old. She'd been hiking for a decade, solo trips mostly, said she preferred the solitude. April 2022. Michelle planned a 3-day trip through the Big Thicket, National Preserve. Over 100,000 acres of forest, one of the most biodiverse places in North America. Day 1 was fine. Set up camp, made dinner, watched the sun go down through the trees. Then it got dark. I've camped alone dozens of times. I know what a forest sounds like at night. Insects, owls, small animals moving through the brush. She paused. This was different. The sounds were wrong. Around 10 p.m., Michelle heard something moving through the trees. About 50 yards from her tent. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. At first I thought it was a deer, maybe a coyote, something normal. She listened. The footsteps continued, circling her camp, never getting closer, never moving away. It walked around me for 2 hours, same pace, same distance, like it was watching. Michelle didn't sleep that night. She sat in her tent with her flashlight, listening. Around 2 a.m., the footsteps stopped. Silence, complete silence. That was worse. When it was moving, I knew where it was. When it stopped, I didn't know if it was gone or just waiting. She lay there until sunrise, didn't close her eyes. In the morning, she walked the perimeter of her camp, looking for tracks, looking for signs. Nothing. The ground was soft, should have shown prints. There were none. I packed up and hiked out that morning. Didn't finish the trip, didn't care about the money I'd spent or the planning I'd done. Michelle looked at me. Something was out there. I don't know what, but it watched me all night, and it didn't want me to see it. She still hikes, different places now, crowded trails, popular parks. She doesn't camp alone anymore. I loved solitude. I don't trust it now. I've worked these forests for 18 years. I've learned not to ask too many questions. This story comes from a man named Ray, 53 years old, Texas Parks and Wildlife. He's worked in the Piney Woods region his entire career. Ray has seen everything: lost hikers, hunting accidents, weather emergencies. He's pulled people out of situations that should have killed them, but he says the rescues aren't what keep him up at night. It's the ones we don't find, the ones who just disappear. Ray told me about a case from 2019. A man went hunting in the Sam Houston National Forest, experienced hunter, knew the area, told his wife he'd be back by dark. He wasn't. Search started the next morning. Dogs, helicopters, 30 volunteers. They found his truck, found his gear, found his campsite. They never found him. No sign of struggle, no sign of injury. His rifle was still in his tent. His phone was on the ground, battery dead. Ray paused. A man doesn't walk away from his rifle, not out here, not voluntarily. The search lasted 2 weeks. Nothing. We've had flash floods. We've had animal attacks. We've had people fall into ravines. Those we find eventually, bodies, bones, something. He looked at me. But some people just vanish. No trace, no explanation. Like the forest swallowed them whole. I asked Ray what he thought happened. He was quiet for a long time. I don't think about it. That's the only way to keep doing this job. He leaned forward. But I'll tell you what I tell every hiker, every hunter, every family that comes through here. Don't go off trail after dark. Don't camp alone. And if something feels wrong, leave. Don't wait. Don't investigate, just leave. I asked him if he follows his own advice. He almost smiled. I've worked these forests for 18 years. There are places I don't go anymore. Places that feel wrong. I don't need to understand why, I just need to stay out. It got closer every hour. I never saw it. I don't think I was supposed to. This story comes from a man named David, 29 years old, grew up in Houston, started camping to escape the city. October 2021. David planned a solo overnight trip in the Davy Crockett National Forest. Nothing ambitious. A short hike to a clearing he'd used before. One night under the stars. He set up camp around 5 p.m., made a fire, cooked dinner, everything normal. The sun went down around 7. The first hour after dark was fine, quiet, peaceful. I was reading by the fire, thinking about how much I needed this. Then he heard something, a sound, coming from the trees to the north, about 100 yards out. It sounded like breathing, deep, slow, like something big, exhaling. David stopped reading, listened. The sound continued, rhythmic, patient. I told myself it was the wind, trees creaking, something natural. But there was no wind. The air was still. He shined his flashlight toward the sound. The beam disappeared into the darkness. Trees, shadows, nothing else. The breathing continued. David built up the fire, told himself the light would keep whatever it was away. An hour later the sound was closer. 80 yards, maybe 70. Same breathing, same rhythm, but nearer. I still couldn't see anything. I swept the flashlight back and forth. Nothing. Just trees. Just darkness. David started talking. Out loud. To himself. To the fire. To whatever was out there. I don't know why. I thought maybe if I made noise it would go away. Or I'd feel less alone. It didn't go away. By midnight, the breathing was 50 yards out. I could hear it clearer now. It wasn't like any animal I knew, not a bear, not a boar, something else. David didn't sleep. He sat by the fire, flashlight in one hand, knife in the other. 1 a.m., 40 yards. 2 a.m., 30 yards. I could hear twigs breaking now, small sounds, like something shifting its weight, but always from the same direction, always just outside the firelight. 3 a.m., 20 yards. I was shaking. I couldn't breathe. I knew if I ran I'd be in the dark with it, so I just sat there, waiting. The breathing was loud now, clear, right at the edge of the light. David stared into the darkness, flashlight trembling. Nothing, just black, just trees. I know something was there. I could hear it, I could feel it, but I couldn't see it, like it existed just outside of what my eyes could process. He sat there until 4 a.m. The breathing never stopped, never came closer than the edge of the firelight. Then, just before dawn, it stopped. Silence. David waited 30 minutes. Nothing. When the first light hit the trees, he packed his gear and ran. Didn't walk. Ran. He reached his car in half the time it took to hike in. He hasn't been back to that forest, hasn't been camping at all. I know what people will say. My imagination. Panic. Some animal I didn't recognize. He looked at me. But I've camped my whole life. I know what animals sound like. I know what wind sounds like. I know what my imagination sounds like. His voice dropped. That wasn't any of those things. Something was out there. It watched me all night, and it never let me see it. He paused. I think that was the point. I think it wanted me to know it was there, but not what it was. David lives in the city now, doesn't leave Houston much. He says he sleeps better with traffic noise. At least in the city you can see what's watching you. I've hunted these woods for 30 years. I've never been scared. Until I was. This story comes from a man named Earl, 58 years old, born and raised in East Texas. His family has hunted the piney woods for 3 generations. Earl doesn't scare easy. He's killed wild boar in the dark, tracked wounded deer through brush so thick you couldn't see your hand. He knows these forests better than most rangers. November 2020. Earl was on a deer hunt, deep in the Angelina National Forest, a spot his grandfather showed him 50 years ago. He set up his blind before dawn. Waited. The morning was quiet. Too quiet. No birds, no squirrels, nothing moving. In 30 years, I've never seen the forest that still. Earl waited anyway. Sometimes deer move when nothing else does. Around 10 a.m. he heard something. Footsteps, behind him, heavy. Earl turned, raised his rifle. Nothing. The footsteps stopped. I scanned the tree line for 5 minutes. Nothing moved, nothing there. He turned back to his blind. The footsteps started again, closer. Earl spun around. Rifle up, finger on the trigger. Nothing. I'm not a nervous man. I've faced down boar. I've been charged. I've never flinched. He paused. But standing there, rifle raised at nothing, I felt fear. Real fear. The kind I hadn't felt since I was a child. The footsteps came again. From a different direction now, to his left. Earl turned. Nothing. Then to his right. Nothing. Behind him. Nothing. It was circling me, playing with me, and I couldn't see it. Earl did something he'd never done before. He left his blind, packed his gear, walked out. I didn't run. I'm too old and too proud for that, but I walked fast, and I didn't look back. He reached his truck in an hour, drove home. His wife asked why he was back early. He said the deer weren't moving. He didn't tell her the truth. I've hunted those woods my whole life. My father hunted them. My grandfather hunted them. He looked at me. I'm not going back. I don't care what's out there. I don't want to know. Some things you're not supposed to see. Earl still hunts, different forests now, public land, places with other people around. He says he doesn't like the company, but he likes being alone out there even less. My family has lived here for 100 years. There are places we don't go, we never did. This story comes from a woman named Rosa, 64 years old. Her family has lived in a small town at the edge of the Sabine National Forest since the 1920s. Rosa didn't want to talk at first, said her family doesn't discuss these things with outsiders, but eventually she shared what she could. When I was a girl, my grandmother told me about the woods. She said there were places that belonged to us and places that didn't. Rosa's family owned land near the forest, a farm, cattle, the normal things, but there was a section of the property, about 40 acres bordering the national forest, that no one used. No fences there, no cattle, no crops, we just left it alone. Rosa asked her grandmother why. She said her grandmother told her the same thing she was telling me, that land isn't ours. Don't go there. Don't let your children go there. And if you hear something at night, don't go looking. Rosa followed the rule. So did her parents. So did her children. I don't know what's out there. I've never looked. I've never wanted to. But she remembers one night. She was 16. Summer. Couldn't sleep. She heard something outside her window. Not an animal, not a person, something else. A sound like breathing, like the forest itself was exhaling. Rosa went to the window, looked out. The sound was coming from the edge of the property, from the 40 acres. I couldn't see anything, just darkness, just trees. But I knew something was there, watching the house, watching me. She stepped back from the window, closed the curtain. The sound continued for an hour, then stopped. I never told anyone, not my parents, not my husband, not my children. She paused, but I made sure my children knew the rule. Same words my grandmother used, same warning. I asked Rosa what she thought was out there. She shook her head. I don't think about it. Some things you don't need to understand. You just need to respect. She looked toward the window, toward the forest in the distance. My grandmother lived to 93. My mother lived to 88. We've been on this land for 100 years. She turned back to me. We're still here because we learned what not to do, where not to go, what not to look for. Rosa still lives in that house, still owns that land. The 40 acres are still empty. My grandchildren ask sometimes why we don't use that part of the property, why there's no fence. She almost smiled. I tell them the same thing I was told. That land isn't ours. Leave it alone. They listen. They don't understand. But they listen, and that's enough.